Some of these games came out just recently, others launched years ago, and somehow they're all putting up surprisingly strong FPS numbers on this $30 GPU. No special optimization tricks, no overclocking. This is raw performance exactly as it is. This isn't a brand new graphics card. It's not something people usually recommend. And it's definitely not the GPU you're thinking of right now. So the real question is, how far can a $30 GPU actually go in modern gaming? And more importantly, what's the real cost of choosing something this cheap? Honestly, I wasn't even planning to find this GPU at first. My goal was pretty simple. Find a graphics card for around 30 bucks. Something that could at least run modern games at the bare minimum. But once you start looking at the market in this price range, things get messy. You start seeing names like GT 730, GT 1030, HD 7750. Sure, they can output a display and handle light games, but when it comes to modern titles, they almost completely fall apart. Some other cards at a similar price might be a bit faster, but then you run into other problems. Terrible driver support, very limited VRAM, or they're simply no longer optimized for newer games. And then, I found a GTX 970 4GB, a card that was once high-end, wide memory bus, high bandwidth, and most importantly, drivers that are still supported. Is it perfect? No, but at around $30, this is one of the very few GPUs where you don't have to sacrifice everything at the same time. If you've been into PC gaming long enough, there's one name you've definitely heard before, GTX 970. It used to be one of the most popular GPUs among everyday gamers. Not the most powerful card out there, but what really made it special was the price. At launch, it cost around $300, which was a very strategic price point, meant to compete directly with cards like the AMD Radeon R 9290. But the road to success for this card wasn't exactly smooth. At some point, users started questioning whether the GTX 970 really had 4 GB of RAM, or if it was actually more like 3.5 GB. And once the numbers came out, everything exploded. Articles, videos, endless debates, and in a very short time, the GTX 970 went from being the people's GPU to a card many gamers actively avoided. Not because it suddenly became weak, but because trust was broken. Slowly, the GTX 970 faded out of discussions, pushed to the last pages of eBay listings, and today, I want to give this card another chance, to see if it can still shine and prove that it deserves to be remembered for more than just the controversy. On paper, the specs are honestly insane for a $30 GPU, 4 GB of ROM and 16 64 CUDA cores. In fact, in terms of CUDA core count and memory bandwidth, it can even beat some much more expensive cards. For example, something like a GTX 1650 Super, which still goes for close to $100 if you're just looking at raw specs. So yeah, I ended up ordering it, plus about $10 for shipping, and after just 3 days, the package finally arrived. Now it's time to see what this thing can really do. The GPU came in a very basic box, probably because the shipping was dirt cheap, but the actual condition of the card? Surprisingly good. The components still look very clean, no signs of rust or corrosion at all. That said, the seller did throw in a free bonus layer of dust, so yeah, I'll definitely need to clean it up before putting it through some serious stress tests. Aside from the dust buildup from years of use, there's honestly nothing to complain about. One thing you can't ignore though, this might be the longest $30 GPU you can buy. It's literally twice the length of my GT 730. And fitting this thing into small, compact systems like Office PC? Yeah, and that's just not happening. The problem with this GPU is, it's not easy to deal with. Power draw is close to 150 watts, and it requires a proper external power supply, which means I can't just throw it into a random cheap system and call it a day. So I made a decision. I installed it into my main PC. Partly to make sure the GPU could run at 100% of its potential, and partly to completely eliminate any chance of a CPU bottleneck. When I pressed the power button, the GPU fan started spinning, and usually that only means one thing. It's alive. But before I could celebrate, I noticed something was wrong. The screen stayed black, and then my PC started power cycling over and over again. At that moment, I was genuinely nervous. Plugging an old, unknown GPU into your main system is a huge risk. All it takes is a bit of bad luck, and it could take other components down with it. So I stopped. I pulled the card out, moved over to a cheap backup PC, and decided to do things the right way. I cleaned every connector, treated the contacts with deoxidizing solution, and tried again. And then it posted. That was the moment I finally exhaled. Once I was confident the GPU was fully stable, I installed it back into my main PC. No crashes, no issues. Everything worked perfectly. And now, it's time for the most important part. I lined up a series of modern games, including some of the heaviest AAA titles I could throw at it. Let's see what this card is really capable of. Before jumping into actual games, I wanted to put this GPU through a quick Heaven benchmark test. I ran it at full HD resolution with ultra settings. Thankfully, the GPU handled it just fine without any issues. Temperatures stayed well within a safe range, sitting at around 65 degrees Celsius. In the end, it scored 1,358 points with an average FPS of 53.9. The first game, and the main performance benchmark for this GPU, is Counter-Strike 2. At 1080p with high settings, most of the load is clearly on the GPU, which is running close to 100% usage. In real matches, FPS sits around 100 frames per second, and in some moments it can spike up to 150 FPS. Performance stays stable throughout the entire session, which means you can comfortably play on a 120Hz monitor without any issues. Overall, this is honestly very impressive for a GPU that costs just $30. Next up is another very graphics-heavy game, Grand Theft Auto 5. Running at very high settings, I'm still getting a stable 70 to 80 FPS across pretty much all situations. What's really interesting here is that the GPU is able to fully utilize the entire 4 GB of ROM. Thankfully, the infamous 3.5 GB ROM limitation never shows up in this case. With performance like this, you can comfortably enjoy the story mode or jump into GTA Online without any real issues. Next up is Minecraft, a game that's actually known for being brutal on the GPU once you turn shaders on. With the render distance set to 32 chunks, FPS can spike to over 300, but it usually settles at around 150 FPS, which is still insanely good. Once I enable shaders, FPS drops to around 40, but it stays stable. And that's more than enough for a comfortable, enjoyable experience. I'm not trying to advertise anything here, but honestly, for $30, this is a really solid GPU and absolutely worth picking up. After testing all the popular multiplayer games, I moved on to a AAA title, Tomb Raider. This game is pretty demanding, but I still ran it at ultra settings. At 1080p, FPS consistently stays above 100 frames per second, and the performance remains rock-solid stable the entire time. Honestly, this is an excellent result, especially when you remember that this is coming from a $30 GPU. Next up is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Running on low settings with FSR2 enabled, FPS comes in at a fairly modest around 50 frames per second. Now, this isn't an amazing result, but considering the price point, it's still absolutely worth it. For anyone building a low-budget PC who still wants to experience modern games, this is actually pretty reasonable. And for a slower-paced game like The Witcher 3, 50 FPS is more than enough to enjoy the game comfortably. Not perfect, but definitely playable and honestly impressive for the money. Next up is Cyberpunk 2077. This is a very graphics-heavy game, so I kept the settings on low. With that setup, FPS stays fairly stable at around 50 frames per second. If you're really into this game but don't have a big budget, this is still a solid and playable option. Now moving on to a newer title, Battlefield 2042. At low settings with FSR2 enabled, real-world FPS sits at around 50. If you enable additional upscaling features, FPS can jump up close to 100, but honestly the trade-off is pretty rough. The image gets noticeably blurry and spotting enemies at a distance becomes much harder. You can choose to play at around 50 frames per second to keep better image quality, but with a fast-paced game like Battlefield, running below 60 frames per second can still affect competitiveness in some situations. So yeah, playable, but with compromises you'll definitely feel. So after testing all the graphics-heavy games on this $30 GPU, I'm honestly really impressed with the performance it delivers. That said, it does have one major downside. It draws quite a bit of power. You'll need a decent power supply to run it properly, and yeah, that could mean a slightly higher electricity bill. Still, for the price, the performance is hard to ignore. Thanks a lot for sticking around and watching till the end. And if you know of any even better GPUs in this price range, drop a comment and let me know. I'd love to check them out. See you in the next one.